Thank you, and I thank the chairman for holding this important hearing and for all of our panelists to being here today. We're considering 3 bills, all of which deal with different issues. First, Mr. Duffy and Mr. Carney have a bill that would establish a regulatory regime for proxy advisors. Proxy advisors provide recommendations to institutional investors on how to vote on board of director elections and shareholder resolutions. Big institutional investors are shareholders at thousands of public companies, and they simply don't have the time to carefully review every single 100-page proxy statement in detail, especially because most public companies hold their shareholder meetings in the same 3-month period. So institutional investors rely on proxy advisors for vote recommendations, which are often tailored to the investor's particular corporate governance preference. This is healthy. Proxy advisors do have the time to carefully read all of the statements and proposals because they have professionals who simply read these statements all day, every day. However, this means that proxy advisors can be very influential in the outcomes of shareholder votes, although the evidence on the influence of proxy advisors is mixed. It is probably fair to say that the current regulatory regime for proxy advisors is not ideal. 2 advisory firms account for 97% of the market, ISS and Glass Lewis, but for some reason they are regulated differently. ISS is a registered investment advisor, while Glass Lewis is not. Surely this is not an ideal setup, so I am absolutely open to the idea of a better and more consistent regulatory regime for proxy advisors. But there are several things in this bill that concern me. I don't see why companies should have a statutory right to receive and comment on a proxy advisor's draft recommendations before they are sent to investors. Proxy advisors aren't federal agencies, and a notice and comment period for private companies that are providing a valuable service, in my opinion, is not appropriate at all. I don't recall where this regulation is on any other private company. I'm also concerned about giving companies the right to sue proxy advisors just because they didn't get a meaningful chance to comment on draft recommendations. But I am willing to hear other perspectives on this issue because it is an important one that Congress has not examined for a long time. The second bill is intended to modernize the Investment Advisors Act for advisors to private equity firms and funds. This bill makes a series of targeted changes to the Advisors Act, which are intended to make it more compatible with the private equity business model. I think there is probably space to better tailor the Advisory Act to private equity advisors, but I'm concerned about making sweeping changes to core aspects of a regulatory regime that has been quite successful. We need to think very carefully before we make changes to the books and records rule, the custody rule, or the advertising rule. These are core aspects of the Advisors Act, and they shouldn't be discarded lightly. Finally, Chairman Garrett has an SEC cost-benefit bill. This is similar to a bill that this committee has considered before, but I am interested to hear if any of the witnesses can offer any fresh perspective on this issue. I'd like to thank our panelists for appearing before us today, and I'd like to insert a few statements into the record. These are statements from the Council of Institutional Investors, the Florida State Board of Administration, ISS, and Glass Lewis. And I hope that I'll be able to place these statements into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you.